Hello everyone, welcome to this online tutorial on quants and stock management within SAP Warehouse Management. In the previous session so far, we have had an initial introduction to SAP Warehouse Management, and then we have also created a warehouse structure in the SAP system. In the last session, we also learned how we can create thousands of storage bins using templates and structures. In this session, we would focus on understanding what are quants and how they are actually used to manage stock in SAP Warehouse Management. This is actually one topic where people who are trying to learn SAP Warehouse Management get confused in the initial phase. It actually takes some time to really understand what this term means because many people actually confuse it with quantity, but that actually is not the case. These two terms, quant and quantity, cannot be interchangeably used. So in this session, we would try to learn what actually quant is and how it is different from quantity. Okay, and then of course towards the end we would again hit the SAP system, and then in the system we would see what we discussed during this session. Okay, to understand the quant, let's first start with the definition. Of course, we would not understand much from it, but then with due course of time, maybe it would start making sense. But the quant definition wise is separate identifiable quantities of materials. What does it mean? That if you have a quant, let's say you have 5 pieces of a material with you, so these 5 pieces can be called a quant in SAP system, in SAP WM, and then these 5 pieces should be different from everything else that you have in that particular storage bin. Okay, I know it's a little confusing, but then we will try to understand it in a simpler language in next few slides. So let's try to understand it with one practical example. Let's say in a warehouse, in a particular storage bin, you have a lot of different materials lying together. Okay, so they are totally unorganized, and your supervisor actually asks you to sort them in a way that it becomes easy to pick the right material when it is needed. Okay, so you have, let's say, 100 different materials lying in front of you in a particular bin, and now you have to sort them in a meaningful way. So how do you start? You have to use certain criteria to segregate the stock. Okay, so the first criteria, let's say, you use is the material number. So you identify what all different materials you have, and then you keep them separate from each other. Okay, the next criteria is the batch. What does it mean? Within one material, let's say if you have 10 pieces, but then 5 pieces of them belong to batch B1 and another 5 belong to another batch, you of course have to keep them separate from each other. You cannot mix them up. So the next criteria is the batch. So different pieces belonging to the same material but to different batches also have to be segregated from each other. Okay, the next could be stock category. Now let's say you have the same batch of a particular material, so 10 pieces in that particular batch, but then 5 pieces from that batch belong to stock category quality and 5 belong to blocked stock. So these 5 pieces have to be kept separate from each other. So this quality stock and this blocked stock also cannot be mixed together. So this is another criteria which you can use to separate the stock from each other. The next could be special stock type. Now let's say you have a material, there are 100 pieces in that, there is no batch management, all of them are under the unrestricted stock, but let's say 20 pieces of those 100 pieces belong to consignment stock. So actually your vendor own them, and 80 pieces belong to you. So these 20 pieces actually belong to special stock type K, and you have to keep them separate from the 80 pieces that you own. So material is the same, the batch number is the same, the stock category is the same, but then still there's a difference. And these 20 pieces have to be handled separately. So this is another level. Moving forward, the next criteria is also the plant. So if you remember in the previous sessions, we have discussed that it is possible that different storage locations from different plants can be mapped to the same storage location, to the same warehouse number, which also means that there could be a possibility that within one bin you have stocks belonging to different plants. but then you cannot mix them up because they belong to different plants. So even if the material is the same and everything else also is the same, but if they belong to different plants, you have to keep them separate. So this is also one of the criteria to separate the stock. And the last level is also the storage location. So you know that different storage locations belonging to the same plant and also to from the different plant, they also can be mapped to one common warehouse, which means within one bin you can have the same material belonging to the same plant but to different storage locations. And of course you cannot mix up the stock, so you have to use storage location as well to separate the stock from each other. Okay, so what it means, there is a list of certain criteria, certain attributes using which you have to segregate the stock from each other, and you have to make, let's say, separate groups. Okay, and when you do that, you can say that the material, the quantity that you have in a particular group is completely different from every other group present in that storage bin, right? So there could be possibly two groups where the material is the same, the batch is the same, but maybe one of them belongs to the quality stock and the another one belongs to the unrestricted stock, right? So that's why they are separate from each other, and you can clearly identify them because they have totally separate list of attributes. I mean, these attributes are different for each of them from each other. Okay, I hope it now makes little more sense than like when we started. Okay, so yeah, the same thing, grouping of materials within a storage bin with common attributes. And these groups actually represent quants in the system. So group is a layman language, but in SAP WM, we call them quant. So coming back to this example, when you segregate the material from each other, you are actually creating different quants. Okay. There is an asterisk which says at the bottom that actually within the storage bin or within a storage unit, but I would not talk about it as of now because we have not discussed storage unit. So as of now, let's restrict ourselves to storage bin. Okay, so with this slide, we would try to understand the quants little better. But basically, it is the same thing that we discussed in the previous slide. But I thought maybe representing it this way probably would it little easier for all of you to understand. Okay, first thing to notice, quant is not equal to quantity. They are two different things and cannot be interchangeably used. Now, let's say you have three bins, and as you can see, there are different materials, different quantities stored in these three bins. Let's start with this material. So material M4242. Okay, so there are in total 50 pieces, two boxes, 20 pieces in one and 30 pieces in another. And let's say all these 50 pieces actually belong to one and the same batch, which is BTCH01. And all other attributes also are the same. They belong to the same stock category. There is no special stock type, and they belong to the same plant, same soil location. Everything else is the same. So you have to create one quant for this. Okay, so the quantity is 50 pieces, but the quant would be one. Okay, so you create a quant, and this quant then has 50 pieces. Okay, so quant has 50 pieces, right? So quant is actually not quantity, but every quant can have a certain number of pieces, a certain quantity of a material in that. Okay, now taking another example of, let's say, material MXYZ, which has 30 pieces in this bin. Okay, now this material is different from M4242, so it's a different material. You have to create another quant for this. So this, let's say this quant is quant 2. So this quant would have 30 pieces in it. Now let's take the example of another material, M123. Now this material in total has 30 pieces in one bin, but as you can see, these actually belong to two different batches. I mean, the first box of 10 pieces belong to batch B0101, and then another box with 20 pieces belongs to some other batch. So you cannot mix them up, meaning you have to maintain them using different quant numbers. So SAP would create two different quants for them, quant 3 and quant 4. And quant 3 would have 10 pieces, belonging to the first batch, and quant 4 would have 20 pieces belonging to another batch, right? Then we also have another material M789, and system would create another quant for that, which now has 15 pieces. So as you can see, in the bin at the top, we have two different materials, material M123 and material M789, but we have three quants because within material M123, we have two different batches, and SAP has to segregate them because you actually are not allowed to mix them up. Okay, now at the bottom, we have material M001, and they belong to different batch and different plant. So system has to maintain them using different quants, and of course system also knows how many pieces of that material do you have in that particular quant. Okay, and at the end we have another material M987, and then system creates another quant for that. Now these quant numbers actually are created by SAP using an internal number range. They practically actually do not mean much for us because we never really interact with SAP system using quants, but these are something which are always created in the background, but it is very important for us to understand what they actually are, how they are created, and what is actually their role in the system. But I mean, at least I was a little confused with this term when I started learning WM. And I thought if we can try to explain the concept with a graphic like this, maybe it would become a little easier for a new person to understand the concept. Okay, so with this, we go ahead. Okay, and what is also very important to understand is that within one particular storage bin, we cannot have two groups, or let's say two quants, with exactly similar attributes. So that's what I have also shown in the lower half of this slide. Let's say we have a bin A-10-01, and in this bin, if you have material M123, and if you have only one batch, which is batch 123, and let's say only quality stock, and everything belongs to plant 123 and FG01, then SAP would create only one quant for that. You cannot create two quants because these quants cannot be distinguished from each other. They are one and the same. So there could be only one quant. Of course, the quantity within that quant can go up and down, which we would understand in the subsequent slide. But the bottom line here is there could be only one quant with the same characteristics within one storage bin. You cannot have more than one in one bin having exactly the same characteristics. Okay. Now, let's move on to stock management using Quant. Of course, a very basic representation here, but I hope it would help understand the concept. Let's say we have a bin called bin A1001, and in this bin, we have two boxes of material M123. Let me try to use laser. Yeah. Okay. So we have material 123. There are two boxes, 50 pieces in each, and they all belong to the same batch. Okay. So because everything is the same, system doesn't create two quants. System create one quant. Let's call it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this quant has 100 pieces in it. Okay. Now let's say the same material and the same batch, another box of 40 pieces. Let's say you receive it from your vendor, and now you are storing it in the same bin. Okay, so you put this box here. So what does SAP system do? What it does is it doesn't create a new quant, because as we discussed in the previous slide, if the characteristics of the quantity of a particular set of material is exactly the same, we cannot create multiple quants. The quant has to be the same. So the quant doesn't change, system doesn't create a new quant. What it does is it increases the quantity belonging to this quant. So in the previous slide we had 100 pieces, but now this quant has 140 pieces. Okay, but if these 40 pieces that we are now receiving from the vendor belonged to a different batch, let's say batch 54, and then if we store it in the same bin, system doesn't update the existing quant because this time one of the characteristics is different. So what it actually does is it gives us a new quant. So it creates a new quant, let's say 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then this quant has 40 pieces and the existing quant still has 100 pieces. So no change in the quantity belonging to the first quant. Okay, so when we bring in new stock, depending on the attributes, system decides if it has to create a new quant or if it has to update the quantity in an existing quant. To understand it a little better, let's also talk about stock removal. Let's say from the box which had the stock belonging to the batch 5.4, we removed 20 pieces. So what it does, the quant 1, 2, 3, 4 still remains unaffected. So we still have 100 pieces, but the quantity belonging to quant 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 now drops to 20 pieces. So the quantity belonging to a particular quant can go up and down. Okay, but the quant number remains the same. At this point, it's also interesting to understand that if the quantity belonging to a particular quant becomes 0, then SAP deletes that quant. So if I removed the complete 40 pieces from this quant, system would have actually deleted this quant 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, because then this group actually does not exist. This doesn't really mean anything in the system. So system simply deletes it. Okay, but as long as you have any quantity belonging to this quant, it remains there in the system, and you can always open it using different transactions. But once it is deleted, of course, if you try to open this using the SAP transactions, you would start getting the error messages saying the quant does not exist. Okay. Now, another few important points to learn. So let's say in bin A1001, we had two boxes, material 1, 2, 3, batch 1, 2, which means we had only one quant, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this quant had 100 pieces. Now let's say we remove these complete 100 pieces from bin A1001 to a different bin, bin A1010. So in that case, system doesn't create a new quant. It uses the same quant number. So after this transaction, system creates quant 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in bin A1010. Okay, but if we remove a partial quantity, so let's say out of these 100 pieces, I only move the first box. So I only move the 50 pieces to a different bin. Then because system still needs quant 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for this bin, it cannot be created in this bin as well. So what it does is it has to create a new quant here. Let's call it 7, 8, 9, 10. And then this quant 7, 8, 9, 10 would have 50 pieces, and the quant 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would also have 50 pieces after this movement from one bin to another. Okay, so assuming that we now have a certain level of understanding of quants in SAP WM, let's also try to understand what other informations does it record. So it records the GR date, meaning when system creates a quant. So let's say quant 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it knows that it has material 1, 2, 3, batch 1, 2, let's say 100 pieces. But then on top of that, it also records some other information. It knows what is the GR date. So when did you actually receive these 100 pieces, let's say from the production or from the vendor master. It also records the last transfer order number. So coming back to this example, when we moved these 50 pieces from this bin to another, and when this quant is created, this quant would register the transfer order which was used to bring these 50 pieces here. Okay. Inspection lot number, in case you have quality management activated, when you receive a material from your vendor, let's say system creates an inspection lot, and then when this inspection lot is stored in a bin, system also registers the inspection lot number to which this quantity belongs. If we have any blocking indicator, so let's say this quant 7, 8, 9, 10, which now has 50 pieces, for whatever reason I want that these 50 pieces should not be used for any subsequent process, then SAP gives us some provisions to block this quant. So I can block these 50 pieces, and then you cannot remove it from this bin for different business reasons. But of course, let's not talk about that in detail now. But yes, there are certain fields which we have in the quant definition which carries different information. How is a quant created? Okay, so far we have discussed what a quant is, but then at what time is it created? So whenever system has to create some stock in a storage bin, it creates a quant. Okay, so you have a warehouse, you have storage type, you have storage bins in that storage type. Now, whenever you bring any stock into this storage type, as you know, the stock has to be managed in the storage bins. So you cannot create stock in the storage section or storage type. You have to create the stock in storage bins. So when we say we have to create the stock in storage bins, what do we actually do? We create quants, and then SAP records how many pieces of a particular material are there belonging to this quant. Okay, so in a bin we have the quant, and then quant knows what is the content of the quant. I mean, it knows what it contains. Quant numbers are assigned using a number range defined for the warehouse. As we discussed in the previous slide, this is one of the objects for which we have to create the number range. Once it is defined, system starts using it. So every quant would then have the successive number using this number range. If the storage type allows, we can create quants also with the negative quantity. Okay, this one we would directly understand in the SAP system when we go there. And as soon as the stock in a quant becomes 0, the system deletes the quant. This is also something which we already discussed in the previous slide, but this is important to know. Okay, so time to hit SAP. Okay, so I'm using the transaction ls03n. This transaction is to display a storage bin. If you remember, we used transaction ls01n to create the storage bin. So ls03n is to display. Okay, this is the storage warehouse number that we created. We also create the storage type hierarch, and then one of the bin within this storage type is A010101. Okay, I go to tab stock, select this, and then as you can see, there are few buttons. One of them is quant. I click on this one, and system opens the quant for me. There's also a transaction with which you can directly open the quant, ls23, if you know the quant number. So as we can see, the quant number is 23, so we can also access it using this transaction ls23. Open it, we basically reach the same screen. There are actually many ways with which we can reach to the same screen. I just used one of the methods where I first opened the storage bin, and then I checked what is the content in that bin. I could see that there was a quant, so I selected that and displayed it. But then, as I said, there are many ways. Let me close one of the screens. Okay, so now we are back to the quant. As you can see, the fields at the top, so the material, the plant, the storage location, the batch, stock category, special stock, these are the fields which basically are the criteria that are used to separate the stock of a particular material from everything else present in that bin, so that it is clearly distinguishable, right? If you remember from the slide that we used. It also records in which bin, in which storage type, and in which warehouse number this quant is present. Okay, so this quant as of now in the system is present in this bin and storage type HRK. As you can see, it also records some other information. So it knows that the GR date for this quant is 25th of May 2019. What is the material document which is used to create this, and what is the date and the time when the last movement happened for this quant, what is the transfer order number created in the system, the last one. And then we also have certain fields to deal with the stock situation. So this one shows that we have 10 pieces of this material belonging to this quant. Okay, there are some other stock categories. I don't know if I can call them categories, stock types. So we have available stock, we have stock for put away, we have pick quantity. These fields, maybe if we discuss now, maybe you would not really be able to understand it, because we first need to learn about transfer orders, which maybe we would be doing in a few sessions to come. But then yes, what is important to notice is that there are some fields which also give us the stock situation. So coming back to the example from the slides, let's say if I now bring another 10 pieces of the same material belonging to the same plant, same storage location, and if I bring another 10 pieces to this bin, then system would not create a bin. It would just update these 10 pieces from 10 to 20 for us. Okay, so this is Quant. Uh, okay, let me now call transaction LX03, which gives us the stock situation in a warehouse. So let me run it. Now it gives the, okay, LX02 probably would be better. Okay, this one gives the stock situation. Okay, so as you can see, in the warehouse that we have created, as of now, 3 bins have stocks. So bin A0101, A0102, and NEG001, and the storage type NEG. And if you can see, the total stock is 10, 20, and minus 20. How do we get the minus stock? I'll explain it to you. So this storage type I created just before this session so that I could show you that we can create negative stocks also in a storage type. But for that, the storage type has to allow it. So to have a look at that, let me go to the implementation guide using the transaction SPRO. I then go to logistics execution, warehouse management, master data, define storage type, and then I'll show you the settings of the new storage type that I created. So let me position it to W20, and the new storage type I created was NAG, and I named it negative stock. I'll go to the settings, and as you can see, there's one field in the second sub-screen which says allow negative stock, and if I select this one, system actually allows me to create negative, uh, not negative quants, I mean quants with negative values, negative stock in the bins belonging to this storage type. Okay, so let me, so okay, I'm using the transaction LT01, which is a transaction to create the transfer orders in SAP Warehouse Management. As of now, let's not bother about this one because we have not discussed the transfer orders, but I'll quickly create one just to show it to you what I actually mean. So I am now moving 20 pieces of a material called WM mat 10 from this storage type NEG and this pin NEG001 to storage type HRK, and let's say to a bin called A0103. Now I do not have any stock of this material in this bin. Actually I have negative stock, but because this storage type NEG allows negative stocks in the storage bins that belong to this storage type, it is possible for me to keep on removing more and more stock from this storage type and to send it to some other part of the warehouse. Okay, so I hit enter, check your entries. Yes, I have checked it, and system creates a transfer order. I also need to confirm it. I confirmed it, and then if I go back to stock situation, as you can see that now in the storage type NEG, instead of minus 20, I now have minus 40, and because I have moved another 20 pieces from this storage type from NEG to bin A0103 under HRK. So I got 20, plus 20 here. But if you do a summation here, if you add up 10, 20, 20, and minus 40, you actually have 10. So in warehouse, within one warehouse, you can have negative stock, you can have positive stock, but if you have to actually add up everything, and then the result that you get is the stock that you have at the IM level. So if I go and check how much of this material Okay, so there are different materials. Okay, so for this material, WM mat 10, if I add up 20, 20 and minus 40, the result is 0. Okay, which means at IM level, at inventory management level, I have nothing in the plant ZA01 and FG01. Let's verify that. So I go to transaction MMBE for stock overview, WM mat 10, plant ZA01 and FG01. I run. As you can see, there is actually nothing. At IM level, I have no stock. But within warehouse management, it is still possible to create certain quants, some with negative value, some with positive value. But because we actually do not have any stock, if we sum up the total stock belonging to all these quants, it would sum up to 0. At the same time, if I check the stock for this material, 3 zeros and 70, I have 10 pieces in unrestricted stock and finished goods. This is IM level. In the warehouse level, these 10 pieces are available in storage type HRK and storage bin A0101. And the the quant for this one is, as we have discussed, quant 23. And this quant has 10 pieces in it. Okay, so with this, I hope we could develop the understanding of quants. With the tutorials to come, of course, when we start discussing about the transfer orders, you would, of course, because we would be discussing quants quite often, so it would become more clear to you. But I would really suggest you to think about whatever we discussed in last few minutes, and I'm sure that you would be able to develop an understanding, and you would really be able to realize what actually quant is. And the bottom line is, quant is not equal to quantity. Okay, so with this, we come to the end of this tutorial. I thank you for watching this video and wish you good luck learning WM. Take care. Bye for now.